World craves green, but wallets depend on black. The harsh reality. While the entire world shouts about global warming in international summits, a mere 10% hike in electricity bills or a slight increase in fuel prices causes government approval ratings to plummet. This is the truth that oil companies understand better than anyone. Humanity fears personal hardship far more than it fears a melting planet. Energy wars. When the world craves green, but wallets depend on black. Amidst the global summits emphasizing the climate crisis and a surging public consciousness demanding a shift toward clean energy, a massive rift lies hidden beneath economic figures that are seldom discussed. The startling reality is that in 2024, despite clean energy electricity production surpassing 40% for the first time in history, fossil fuel consumption still accounts for a staggering 81.5% of total global energy use, according to the Statistical Review of World Energy 2024 by the Energy Institute. This reflects that humanity's appetite for energy has not diminished. While wind turbines and solar panels are being installed at record rates, they are merely serving the soaring new energy demands rather than significantly replacing fossil fuel consumption. Data from the Energy Institute confirms that global greenhouse gas emissions remain at record highs because the spike in electricity demand is far outstripping what clean energy sources can handle alone. Commercial impossibility. Global oil companies, or Big Oil, view this landscape through a lens entirely different from that of environmentalists. They do not dismiss the science of global warming as nonsense. Rather, they view it as a commercial impossibility at this present stage. Specifically, they point to the issue of intermittency in renewable energy, the phenomenon where the wind doesn't blow, the sun doesn't shine, yet people still need power, which remains the ultimate strength of fossil fuels. The IEA's World Energy Outlook 2023 states that the world must increase its battery storage capacity sixfold by 2030 to sustain power grids when nature is uncooperative. From the perspective of oil executives, as long as storage technology remains expensive and unstable, fossil fuels will inevitably remain the victor as the most reliable baseload power. The illusion of transition. Most people believe we are phasing out oil, but the actual statistics suggest otherwise. The data, according to the Statistical Review of World Energy 2024, fossil fuels, oil, gas, coal, still dominated 81.5% of total global energy consumption in 2023, despite the significant growth of renewables. Deep dive. Oil companies observe that demand isn't actually decreasing, particularly in developing nations that require cheap energy to build their cities. Reference: Energy Institute, Statistical Review of World Energy. The rivalry and shift between oil and natural gas. An interesting adaptation within the fossil fuel industry itself is the clear rivalry and shifting proportion between oil and natural gas. Although these two often originate from the same source, energy giants are significantly shifting their investment towards natural gas. It is being championed as a bridge fuel that is cleaner than oil and coal. While oil remains essential for manufacturing and transportation, natural gas is rapidly seizing the share from oil and coal in the power generation sector. This is because gas provides high thermal value while emitting approximately 25 to 30% less carbon than oil. Big Oil's aggressive expansion into liquid natural gas, LNG, is not just about drilling the same wells. It is about legitimizing the role of fossil fuels in a green world for decades to come. Beyond stability, cost remains the absolute power that keeps fossil fuels in command. Lazard's levelized cost of energy analysis points out that while the cost of producing solar power has dropped remarkably, once the firming cost of backup systems to ensure 24-hour supply, is included, the price of clean energy immediately surges higher than natural gas. This irony is evident in emerging superpowers like China and India. Despite massive investments in clean energy, coal consumption hit new all-time highs last year. For these governments, energy security and affordable prices for their citizens are more urgent than carbon reduction during times of critical economic expansion. The two-track strategy. The data. Reports from Reuters and various NGOs indicate that the world's five supermajors invest an average of only 10 to 15% of their total capital expenditure into clean energy. The remaining 85% continues to pour into oil and gas exploration. Strategy. They don't view global warming as a joke. They believe that oil profits are the cash flow used to buy the future. In the business of energy, anyone who leaves the oil table first is the loser. Transportation costs, the invisible tax. The reason fossil fuels maintain their grip on government decisions globally is their role as the primary force behind transportation costs, the lifeblood of the global economy. Whenever energy prices rise, a domino effect ripples through the supply chain, from the cost of fertilizer in agriculture to logistics. This is a major catalyst for inflation that directly erodes the purchasing power of the public. The IMF reports that energy supply disruptions lead to cost-push inflation, causing rapid spikes in food and consumer goods. Oil companies are well aware that in a world where long-haul transport cannot yet rely 100% on clean energy, fossil fuels will dictate the cost of living. Therefore, forcing a premature exit from fossil fuels without a cheaper alternative effectively pushes a massive financial burden onto the citizens, a political risk no government is willing to take. The intermittency trap. The sun doesn't shine 24/7. When there is no sun and no wind, there is still power. This is where fossil fuels sweep the market. The data, the IEA, International Energy Agency, states that to fully transition to renewables, the world must increase battery storage capacity sixfold by 2030. Currently, the cost of megawatt-level batteries remains higher than many countries can afford. Big Oil's move. Companies like ExxonMobil and Chevron are investing heavily in natural gas because it offers dispatchable power, the ability to turn power plants on and off the moment the sun sets. Reference: IEA, World Energy Outlook 2023. The petrodollar. Furthermore, fossil fuels are tied to global financial power through the petrodollar system, which has mandated that global oil trade be conducted in US dollars for over 50 years. This system forces every nation to accumulate dollars to purchase energy, making the USD the world's primary reserve currency. However, this foundation is beginning to tremble with the rise of the BRICS Plus nations, who have begun utilizing local currencies instead of the dollar to mitigate the risk of economic sanctions. This de-dollarization effort reflects that oil is not just fuel, but a pillar of the global financial order. If the world shifts to clean energy produced locally, the influence of the dollar, tethered to oil, will inevitably be shaken. Chicago Policy Review confirms this currency transition is a critical topic in modern geopolitics. Geopolitics. Energy as a weapon. The dimension of energy is further layered with intensifying geopolitics. Access to energy sources is not merely a matter of profit and loss, it is about national bargaining power. Restricting access to oil through economic sanctions has become a weapon more potent than any army. In times of war or international tension, countries unable to achieve energy self-sufficiency fall under the mandate of those who hold the resources. While clean energy might seem independent, its supply chain, such as rare earth minerals and semiconductors, is monopolized by a few nations. Thus, fossil fuels remain a tangible weapon and the most certain asset for world leaders seeking to maintain energy independence. Cost is king. Why are coal and oil still in use? Because they are cheap and ready. The data, statistics from Lazard's Levelized Cost of Energy, LCOE, show that while solar is significantly cheaper, once firming costs are added to provide 24-hour power, the price of clean energy jumps above that of natural gas. The reality: in India and China, coal usage hit new all-time highs last year because energy security matters more than clean air on days when people have no food. Reference: Lazard, Levelized Cost of Energy Analysis. Should we abandon clean energy? Should we then abandon clean energy altogether? The answer is no. But we must view it with realism. Clean energy is not a switch that can be flipped overnight. It is an investment to ensure against future risks. Fossil fuels are like an old, dilapidated house that still provides a roof over our heads. We cannot demolish the old house as long as the new one is not yet roofed. What the world needs is not an abrupt termination of fossil fuels that leads to starvation and economic crisis, but rather using the massive profits from the traditional energy industry to accelerate the construction of a new infrastructure that is cheap and stable, enough that the market chooses it naturally, without coercion. The two-track strategy employed by oil companies involves squeezing maximum profit from fossil fuels today to buy the technologies of tomorrow. They seek to remain the primary players regardless of what color of energy the world turns to. The conclusion of this story is not a battle between good and evil, but a struggle between the ideal of a green world and the human reality of needing energy that is cheap, certain, and ready for survival the next morning. Humans may want to change the world with ideology, but energy companies and global superpowers are changing the world through cost and real bargaining power.